Now, we are going to talk about built-in iterables and iterators. So Python has a lot of built-in functionality that returns the iterable or iterators both. So here, let's talk about the range functions, like when we create the range of 10, right? So when we run this, right? So now this R10 is the object of range 10. It's an iterable. That means we can check that, like if the object is iterable, we know that if the object is iterable, then it has the iter and the next method both, right? So again, when we call this R10 is an iterable, right? So when we check this iter in the dir, we'll get the true, right? So again, remember, this is an iterable. This is an iterable. That means you can take this in a loop. But this object, this direct object is not a iterator. That means if it is not iterator, then it will not have the next method. So when we call this next in dir10 will get false. So this object will not have all the value. But when you take this in a loop, this will become the iterator, right? So we can request the iterator by calling the iter function. So here we are calling this iter functions, right? And then we are passing this R10, right? When we call this, now it becomes the iterator now. Now this object R10 iter is the iterator, and now we can check that this iter and the next both is available. We have. So iterable have only the iter method and not the next method, right? While the iterator have both iter and the next method, right? So most built-in iterables in Python use the lazy evaluation. That means it does not have the pre-calculated or pre-computed value. When you call this, it will compute the new value and then it will compute the element one at a time and then it will give you whenever it needed. So that's the reason when we print the range object, we do not actually see the content of the range. That means because that value does not exist, right? Instead, we need to iterate through the iterator and put it into something like list or like so. When we call the range function, we do not get the actual value. But when you take this in a list or when you iterate it using for loop, you'll get the value. That's the reason. So because it uses the lazy evaluation technique or the method. So here, when we do this in a list, it will give you the value. Even the zip is also the iterator. It also return the iterator. So we have this zip. When we call this, you can see that it is giving you the object. That means it has not zipped the value. It has not done the calculation. It has not done the computation. It is just returning you the iterator. Because it is the iterator, so that means when you call the next on this, it will give you the value, right? So we can check that it both has like this list has both iter and the next method. Just like the range, it also uses the lazy evaluation technique. When you call the list of z, now it will give you the value. Even the reading a file line by line also does the lazy evaluation. That means when you open the file, we can check the type of the file, and then we can check that whether this both method is present in or not. The type of file is this, and both method iter and the next method is present in the file, this object, right? We can also call the next method. Here we are printing the next of f. Correct. So we are using the next of, so here we are using the next function, here we're using the next method, and now we are using the readline method. So readline method will give you, it's like it's been implemented to read one row at a time, right? So here, when we call the next of this, it will print, it has printed this. When we call the next method, it has printed this. And when we call the read line, it has printed this, right? So all the outputs are similar, right? Of course, we can just iterate over all the line using for loop. We can do this. We can run this in a for loop. We can print all the line and we are getting the similar result. You can also use the read lines method to read or to kind of read entire lines and store it in a list. You can also use this, right? We have used this. So which to use? Should we use read lines and should we use read? It depends on the situations, right? Consider these problem over here for that. So here we are using this read line method to read the data, and now we want to add the origin value. And now we are adding the origin value into a set. So when we do this, we have these three unique origins: Japan, US, and the Europe. But remember that first we are reading the entire file and then we are stripping the value. Now consider this problem over here. First, now when we run this, first we have done the next of f, then again the next of f. So our values are from here, right? So our output are from, so we know that this is the origin value, right? Again, like this is the value we are getting. We know that. So from here, our total origin is there, right? From the third value, we have this origin, the next value. So that's the reason here we have done the next two time, and then for the from the third f we are taking the loop, and now every time we are extracting the last part and adding it to the origin, right? So here the output is still the same, but this code is reading entire file and then calculating the origin, but this code is reading one line at a time. So this is the more efficient. Let's say that if we have the heavy file, right, series of file, and then you need to process it, this is the much cleaner approach, right? And it is doing the process one at a time, right? Now even the enumerate is also the lazy iterator. So when we call this enumerate, we can see that it has both method. When we call the iter of e, we can see that now this has returned the iterator, right? This has returned the iterator. When we call the e, again we can check that this object and this object, both objects are same, right? So when we call the iter of e, this has returned the iterator, and this is called the iterator method, or the iter method, which return the object itself, right? We can calculate this. When we see the, like when we do the list of e, it will give you, or it will calculate all the value, right? But this time when we, now when we call this list of e again, we cannot do that, right? Here we'll get the empty list, right? Because we are looping over the iterator. Now the dictionary object provides some method to return the iterable of key values and the key value pair. So we have this dictionary, we can extract the key with the dot keys method, and we can check whether this keys or the dot keys, these method both are iterable or not, both are iterator or not. So this keys is the iterable, this method returns the iterable, but itself it is not iterator. We're getting false over here, right? Here we can check that this both are false over here, right? Now again the same thing happens with the values also returns, like this values also is not the iterator, it is the iterable, same as with the items. So item will give you the keys and the value pair of the dictionary, right? So this is it. This is all about the built-in iterable and the iterator. Thank you very much.